Psilocybin is a tool in its first and foremost principle as a tool of exploration.
With the mushroom is whole within itself. It is a plenum of information that spans past the earthly realm. It goes into the macroverse and it goes into the microverse.
To be able to explore, to be able to look into the darkness and say, hey, I'm not looking for the light in the darkness. I'm looking for my eyes to adjust to the darkness so I can go deeper into the darkness.
With the step, the hand hits, and we pull, coordinating the movement.
And all of the martial arts that you see have entheogens that go along with them. How you think, the Kung Fu guys, they're standing on a blade of grass or jumping to the top of the tree and, 1,000 arrows come and they just knock them out of the way. That's all entheogenic use. It liberated its information to a being that was available to be able to gather it, hold it, sustain it, and give it back to his brothers and sisters as technology in the world. Going high dose sojourned into these realms, and that's how they brought that information back. That's why the mushrooms at Angkor Wat in Cambodia built Cambodia. The mushrooms in Mexico, they built the Olmec, the Toltec, the Mayan, and the Aztec civilizations. And when I was talking about Marvel Comics, because Marvel Comics is driven through entheogens and LSD and mushrooms and things like that. All the same two guys that were hooking up Dr. Strange by sitting in an apartment in New York, dropping acid mushrooms, are the same ones who created Guardians of the Galaxy. It is something to make us more than what we are as being human beings. I think it ushered us into the human and will eventually usher us into the transhumanistic realms and then ultimately into something that is unimaginable. Information that are microscopic in many terms when you see spores. Diversity in the psychedelic community, what does that mean? It means that some folks stand down to give the floor to somebody else.
Many times in our travels, there'll be people, white, black, however, who were lay people who had very, very deep, profound understanding, but they never had the platform. And so when he would speak, he would give validation to those people who probably had more experience than the organizers of the conference, but who didn't have the recognition, the platform. And so because of that, it really brought in a more enlightened class.
But I imagine for the people, the young people in this context, you mentioned like the college students or anyone who had an experience, they could talk to Ahati Kilindi and say, this is what happened. This is what I saw. This is what I was doing. And he wouldn't pass judgment. He would be in a position to understand and to even provide even more enlightenment about perhaps what that experience might have meant for you. And I think that is so, so, so important for Black people because of all of the hyper stereotyping that we experience in mental health settings. When you're trying to access healing, it's so important to be in a context in which you can feel safe enough to be honest about what you saw and what you experienced. And I think he really offered that to everyone, but especially for people of color and for Black people who look to him in that regard. It was a really special gift.
And so the conversation of setting became very important. The conversation about dosage became very important. And the conversation about what you experience over there took a much more serious tone, as opposed to I forgave my ex-girlfriend from high school, and I learned to love myself and change my diet. I mean, that's beautiful, but he was coming back saying, no, there's a galactic, shifts going on, and and then when people go in at those high rounds, they say, "Damn, you're right," So I think he pushed it to become much more mature, much more like, look, stop playing. And I think he gave empowerment to everyday people to become their own psychonauts and not have to wait, go to Peru and pay $2,500 or go to some clinic and ask for a watered down Iboka session. But no, you do it yourself. And he empowered people to be their own doctor, priest, whatever we call it.
He was so far ahead of his time. I think that the field of psychedelic science is going to be spending years to try and catch up to where he was in previous years. So he was ahead of the game. He was ahead of the curve. He pushed the envelope, and he encouraged self-exploration.
And that's one thing I've learned through psychedelic mushrooms that I brought back, is that the only thing that can't be done in all of space and time, ultra-dimensionals, all the different worlds and universes and galaxies, the only thing you can't do is die. The only thing you can do is, that you can't do is stop existing. You've always existed and you will always exist.